Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. A grandfather and his 14-year-old granddaughter have reached a settlement with the Bank of Montreal. That's after they were handcuffed over 2 years ago at a branch in Vancouver. In December 2019, Maxwell Johnson wanted to open an account for his granddaughter. A bank worker instead called police because they had, quote, fraudulent Indian status cards. Today, Maxwell Johnson closed his account. Hailsuck Nation members outside the bank to show their support. Johnson and his granddaughter received an undisclosed payment from the bank. BMO will take part in a private apology ceremony. The bank will also display art created by Johnson at the branch where they were handcuffed.
It's been a long process with BMO, but I'm glad it's coming to an end, and I hope nobody else of color has to go through this themselves. It's not only hard on my family, but it's hard on our culture. I mean, our people. They felt what I was going through too, not only me, but my son and my granddaughter. So I just hope nobody else has to go through this with any big corporations like this.
Today is Red Dress Day, a national day of awareness for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and two-spirited people. Rallies and walks were held throughout the country, including Manitoba's capital city. Our Daryl Stranger starts off our coverage.
Events around Manitoba's capital city kicked off with dozens gathering outside Winnipeg City Hall to commemorate Red Dress Day. Families and survivors were on hand to raise awareness on the issue and participate in song and prayer. Sisters Kim McPherson and Jerry Pangman lost their sister and aunt to violence.
Well, for me, it's very important to keep raising awareness and to let people know that our loved ones were loved. They were beautiful human beings that once walked here, that they are someone, and to keep being my sister's voice, my auntie's voice. Because there's so much that women are still going missing, so we still need a lot of work to be done.
McPherson hopes with days like today, more people can learn about the issues that are still ongoing.
Today is why I like participating, is to remind everybody that this is not just an Indigenous issue, this is a whole society issue. It's an issue that I hope Canadians champion and walk with us. You know, walk with us families to try to find justice and also to prevent this from happening again.
A large gathering then congregated near Manitoba's legislature before walking to the Odena Circle in the Forks, where more song and prayer took place. Daryl Stranger, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
To Calgary now, where red dresses and ribbons were hung throughout the city for Red Dress Day. Hundreds gathered to remember loved ones. APTN's Tamara Pimentel was there and has this report.
The event in Calgary took place along Memorial Drive, where the dismembered remains of Blackfoot woman Joey English were found in 2016. Today, the entire area covered in red to remember her and hundreds of other Indigenous women taken too soon.
Red is the color that the spirits see. So when we wear red for MMIWG2S, we're calling in those spirits of our loved ones to come join us for the day in a good way, so that we can honor them and remember them and know that they are loved and never forgotten.
Deborah Green Gopher organized the gathering while honoring her sister Lainey.
She was murdered in 1982 by a Starlight tour here outside of Calgary, and so my family and I have been advocating for many years for the movement. Her murder was never investigated or solved.
Green Gopher says police were asked to not attend this event because of the history of police violence toward Indigenous people.
We did have 2 police officers show up earlier. We had to ask them to leave in a respectful way, not them as people, but the uniform that they represent. You know, they were welcome to join us without their uniform, is very trauma triggering for a lot of families that are coming today to heal.
With performances from the Blackfoot Confederacy Drum Group and a teepee from Calgary's Bear Clan, missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls like Joey and Lainey aren't forgotten.
Anytime I speak or walk or march or arrange gatherings, it's always in her name, and she always comes every time.
Tamara Pimentel, APTN National News, Calgary.
Up the road from Calgary, over 300 people gathered in downtown Edmonton this morning to honor Red Dress Day. Our Chris Stewart has that story.
The Bear Clan Patrol Beaver Hills House and Water Warriors YEG hosted a Red Dress Walk in downtown Edmonton, and hundreds came to honor those who have gone missing or murdered, to come together and share each other's pain.
My cousin, she's like my sister. My first cousins are sisters. So she died tragically, and until this day, I still don't know if they even got justice for her. So I do it also to honor her and also myself, because I'm also a survivor of having lived a life of addiction and high risk.
Many people here have personal stories of missing or murdered loved ones.
I have a cousin who was murdered when she was a teenager, when she was like 19, and that was a few years ago. That was hard on the family. And another cousin who went missing and who still hasn't been found yet. So that's difficult. But just to be here and support everybody.
This is like every day for us, but to gather on a certain day means a lot. It impacts like what we're trying to stand for, right? And moving forward with our lives.
And I'm here to pray for my friend, my niece, Leanne Benwell, and others like Bunny, and there's a few other lost, murdered friends of mine. And we're here for the walk to respect and honor and all the families that are suffering, that have lost loved ones.
A huge round dance took place before the group began a walk to a nearby park to continue honoring missing and murdered Indigenous women, men, girls, and boys. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
Big turnouts. Well, to the north now, a woman living in Nunavut is 5 times more likely to die from murder than the average Canadian. You're also 11 times more likely to be a victim of violence. So it was no surprise that the Red Dress March in Iqaluit brought out the numbers. Here's Kent Driscoll.
A crowd of hundreds gathered outside of the Elders' Comic in Iqaluit to mark the National Day of Awareness for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, young and old, men and women. All there because Nunavut suffers some of the highest rates of violence against women in the country. The territory has Canada's highest violent crime index. A full 2/3 of reported crimes in Nunavut are against women, according to Stats Canada. From the Elders' Comic, the crowd marched to the courthouse, filling Iqaluit streets. At the courthouse, the crowd heard from Alexina Kublu. She's a former Nunavut language commissioner. Like so many in this crowd, she also has a very personal connection to murdered Indigenous women.
My sister's children lost their mother by their father. It was so horrendous. I thought that in itself would put an end to this kind of action. But sadly, that was not the case.
Kublu's story is all too common in Nunavut, and this march is a part of addressing it. One of the major recommendations Nunavut's coroner put forward after an Iqaluit murder-suicide included public awareness. This crowd shows much of the public is aware. The big question remaining, if people are aware, what's the next step? For now, the next step is this march, where they're taking it one step at a time. Kent Driscoll, APTN National News, Iqaluit.
Missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls were the focus of a debate in the House of Commons last night. That story and more coming up after the break. Welcome back. Last night, the House of Commons held a 4-hour debate on murdered and missing women, where the federal government was grilled about its response to the 231 calls to justice from the MMIWG final report. Fraser Needham has that story.
Crown Indigenous Relations Minister Mark Miller acknowledged the problem Thursday.
We're failing as a country, and to the extent that responsibility falls in part on the federal government, we have to look at it through that lens.
At the same time, he says seriously tackling MMIWG's calls for justice won't happen overnight.
This is something that it's not an excuse for an action to say it won't get solved overnight, but if you think it can be solved overnight, you're kind of misunderstanding the gravity of the situation. So these are investments that can't be measured in one budgetary cycle. The investments in housing in the current budget will make a difference, particularly in the far north. The investments that are seen through the lens of reducing gender violence will make a difference.
The NDP's Leah Gazan says victims and families of violence have been patient long enough and can't wait any longer for results.
I'd like him to say that to families who are looking for loved ones at the moment, survivors of violence that are not getting support, and women, girls, and Two-Spirit trying to flee violence. I think asking them to be patient, asking anybody who's dealing with this ongoing genocide to be patient is unacceptable.
Conservative MP Gary Vidal is a critic for Crown Indigenous Relations. He says because the Liberals have fallen so short on their promises on MMIWG, they run the risk of breaking the public trust. Something he says is desperately needed when it comes to relations with Indigenous people.
They typically have overpromised and underdelivered on so many things, right? There's lots of announcements, there's lots of photo ops, there's lots of promises, but they end up being a little short on kind of getting it done. And so, maybe that's a transition in strategy to say, hey, let's be careful that we stop this over-promising and under-delivering, because the ultimate consequence of that is that trust is lost with people, right?
Last year, the government released its National Action Plan on MMIWG with 7 priority areas. At Wednesday night's debate, Miller told the House his department will have an update on progress on these priority areas next month. Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
In other news, the flooding in southern Manitoba remains serious. It's taking its toll on several communities, including Peguis and Fisher River First Nation just north of Winnipeg. 700 homes and about 1,500 people from Peguis are affected, with many members having been evacuated to Winnipeg. Doug Thomas is from Peguis. He joins us now in studio. Doug, great to have you with us here in studio. You've been out there. What is the source of this flooding, and do you see the water receding, or is it still coming in?
I'm starting to see it receding right now. It's coming in through the Fisher River. What's happening is all of the communities to the south of us, they have dikes that are built, and it runs all of the floodwaters from the south right into Peguis, and it overflows the Fisher River. So what we've seen is we've seen the water rise and over the last few days, and right now I think yesterday I noticed it starting to come down from the riverside, but what's happening is there's overland flooding. So the overland flooding is stuck in the high spots. So now that the water is starting to recede a little bit, the water is still sitting in high spots and still flooding out a lot of areas. So there's a lot of overland flooding that still has to be dealt with and has to be cleared.
How long do you think it's going to take for things to get back to normal?
Well, it's hard to say because the water has to recede. That's the first thing. But then we are seeing some people coming home. I was watching a video on Facebook this morning of a band member coming home, and they were live streaming as they were coming home. And as they're walking up to the house, the water was already receded from around the house, but when they went into the house, the water was just about 3 inches from the main floor flowing into the main level. Wow. But they had a split level house, like a three tri-level. So the basement and they were just sobbing and crying, and you could see the humanity and what's happening there is they're coming in and they're just sobbing and crying as they're walking into their house live streaming, and they walked into the living room and then they walked into the basement, and you could see all of the water where the bedrooms were all flooded, completely flooded. So there's those issues that people have to deal with. So they may be able to get into the communities, but some of the roads are still flooded and washed out. Homes are flooded and damaged, so it's hard to say when people are going to be back home. Some people could probably go back soon, but there's going to be people that are going to be displaced for some time.
Flooding's so devastating. More than 1,000 band members evacuated here. How's your family doing, Doug?
My family's doing fine. My father-in-law has health issues, so he's still evacuated, and what we're seeing is there's a lot of the children that are walking around in the hotels crying, wanting to go home. Mm-hmm. And we've seen that for the last couple of days. The children just sobbing and crying, I want to go home, I want to go home. And just for the last few days, like my wife was telling me, because she's working in the hotels here with the people that are evacuated. So we have the people that are just hurting, wanting to be home, but yet they can't go home, and some of them may not even have homes to go back to. And then the other thing is we have people that are with health issues that are displaced, and they require personal care. They require services, health services, and they're not getting that here, and it's very difficult for our community and our members and our families. Absolutely.
Doug, flooding like this keeps happening. Is there any long-term plan for finding a way to alleviate that?
Not that I know of. There is a dike that was started around the town site that went around, and it was never ever completed. But that is too low. That it has to be dealt with on a bigger level. There has to be a dike probably built right through Peguis. That's probably the only solution. Or the other thing would be to build dikes around each and every home that's in affected flood areas. From flying the drone in Peguis, I was able to see one house that had a dike built completely around it. That house was completely safe and dry, yet all of the other houses were flooded. So either we build dikes around every single home that's in the flood area, and I don't know how many that is, probably about 800 from what I'm hearing, or else we build a dike all the way through Peguis, and maybe that would be the most realistic solution. But I don't know. But there is solutions, and you could see down in the south in areas where the province has built dikes running right through from Lake Winnipeg to Lake Manitoba. So we see those things happening. If they could do that, surely they could build a small dike through Peguis and Fisher River.
Mm-hmm. Doug, devastating stuff. Thanks for the work you're doing and for sharing some time with us.
Can I say one more thing?
Sure, go.
Yeah, the other thing is our roads. The roads in Peguis are washed out and damaged. The potholes. We're going to need new highways all the way through Peguis. So I think we're going to have to call on the province to do some road work all the way through Peguis as well.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Doug. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Quite the scene. Well, Nation to Nation is coming up tonight after the newscast. We'll bring you a preview after the break. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. This one comes to us from our viewer Gail French as she receives her regular visitor on her porch at home in the Chippewas of the Thames. Thanks, Gail. If you want to be featured as our photo of the day, you can email your photos to share@aptn.ca. Cute guy. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, 5 with showers in St. John's, 8 in Charlottetown, -1 in Kuujjuaq, 2 below with snow in Nain, 15 with showers in Montreal, snow and 7 for Chibougamau, 17 with the sun out in Sault Ste. Marie, 14 and sunny in North Bay, sunny and 12 in Thunder Bay, 15 under the sun in Sioux Lookout, 16 in God's Lake, 18 for Norway House, 20 in Winnipeg, 19 with showers for Dauphin. 19 in rain for Regina, 22 with rain in Saskatoon, 20 and showers for Meadow Lake, 15 with rain for La Ronge. In northern Alberta, 10 with showers for High Level and Peace River. Rain and 14 for Edmonton, 16 in Lethbridge. Rain and 12 in Vancouver, 11 with showers for Victoria. 12 and showers in Prince George, 10 in Smithers. 6 in Old Crow, 9 with rain in Whitehorse. 14 and rain for Yellowknife. 8 and snow in Norman Wells. +1 for Sax Harbor, 0 with snow for Paulatuck. -5 in Chesterfield with snow, +1 in Baker Lake. -7 with snow in Resolute, 2 above and snow in Joe Haven. Now we're going to throw it over to host producer Brett Forrester in Ottawa. He's here to tell us what's coming up tonight on Nation to Nation.
Thanks, Winnipeg. Tonight we're examining racism and colonialism in the Canadian military. Karen Lightbody spent more than 33 years with the Department of National Defence. In that time, she alleges she endured at least one racist act per month. She describes the allegations in a statement of claim filed last fall and joins me tonight for an exclusive. Then I'm joined by retired Sergeant Derek Montour. He joined the Army in 1989, 1 year before the military laid siege to his community of Ganawage during the Oka standoff. And finally, I discussed the importance of Red Dress Day with NWAC Policy Director Lisa Smith. Stick around for all that right after the news.
Thanks, Brett. Tomorrow night on APTN Investigates, we meet a mother who's committed to helping her son get clean. Reporter Brittany Guillot traveled to the heart of Canada's drug crisis to meet with the family and listen to their story. Here's a preview.
You know the Women's Center on Columbia? They're open right now. They do showers.
I just have a few questions about the process of getting into detox.
I got myself a benzo test kit.
Oh, you did?
Oh yeah. So that way, the problem that happened last time won't happen this time.
They told me it's either sober up or die. I'm really reliable, and I know that I'm going to make a good employee once all of my health issues are worked on, so.
This isn't who you are, Tim.
We don't do alcohol withdrawal.
Okay.
And we also don't do benzodiazepines.
Okay.
How are you feeling now that you just got a date set?
Hopeful.
Looks good. We'll have more on that episode tomorrow night here on the news. That's all the time we have for your APTN National News for this Thursday. For news anytime, visit our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Dennis Ward. Thanks for tuning in. Stick around. Brett is up next with Nation to Nation. We'll see you back here tomorrow.